Hello, welcome. My name's Alexander Bonn-Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Voice to Men Canada, and I'm here with Sean Cameron, who is leading our Circle Culture Academy for Boys to Men, which is launching January 17th. And the Circle Culture Academy is a training for mentors, but also people who work in facilitation or work and rely on their communication skills. And Sean is a social worker by trade, but now he runs his own psychotherapy private practice. Big welcome, Sean. So, you've been with Boys to Men for many years. Do you want to say a little bit about your involvement and how that's changed over the decades?
Yeah. So, decades is a stretch. It's been about a decade, a little more than a decade. But my participation started as a participant. I came to an event really, really searching to find a place where the truth was really honored. I was also curious about masculinity, my own masculinity, what what it means to be a man or could mean to be a man. I needed
Yeah.
a satisfying answer to that question at that time in my life.
Mm,
And 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 I was at that point like a very angry young man, I would say, and lost.
mm,
And and I was trying to find my way in. So yeah, that's I showed up with all of that, hoping to get something out of it, get some answers to some of my questions, and maybe not maybe not find a way forward in life in a practical sense, but in a spiritual sense or in a way of being sense. I was looking for how to be in the world, and I was like, maybe this place can give me a piece of that, help me
mm,
understand how I'm supposed to be in the world.
mhm. Yeah, that's really like um, the scope that we try to hold in a Boys to Men Canada circle or space or program. But at that age, were you cognizant of that? Were you aware that you were looking for that level of meaning?
At that point, I'd become pretty aware.
Hmm.
Um, I was a few years um, into the stage of my life that I really dedicated to healing
Hmm.
from from stuff that happened to me when I was young. Maybe I didn't know exactly what I was seeking, but I had a faith. I had a faith that if I looked hard enough, I would find something that felt meaningful because the philosophies, the ideas, the belief systems that had been offered up to me as a boy, as a young man growing up, were utterly unsatisfying. Like I just wouldn't want to live life if if any of those things were true about
Yeah.
about what life is or what you should do with it. Um, so I was questing, I guess. I was looking. Um, I don't know that I had I showed up a little prickly, I think, but with a lot of hope. I was really hoping. Like I had a lot of hope at that time that if I just kept looking, I would find something that felt real in the world.
Uh,
Um, Something that would um, kind of align with the law of my soul, the law of my spirit, maybe that felt like it was just broken constantly growing up, not necessarily even by rough things I had to endure, but just by what life seemed to be offering
yeah.
uh, to me as far as um, what's meaningful,
Yeah.
um, and how you can be.
Mm,
So yeah, that's how I got involved, and then I had a really powerful experience at that first event. Um, Attached myself kind of to the leaders of that event. I wanted to learn everything.
mm,
I just wanted to understand, like, how did you do that? Like I watched these other young men have a really powerful experience. I knew something really magical was happening, um, and I wanted to know how to do that. and what else there was to learn. It really ignited like almost desperate curiosity in
Mm,
me.
mm,
And then I spent the next 10 years involved in Boys to Men in various ways, um, because I'm pretty technically proficient and decent with marketing. I helped on that end. I also helped run a circle on Vancouver Island and got experience being in a circle trying to help teenage boys answer the same questions that I had.
mm-hmm.
And then um, today I've stepped back a little bit, but I'm teaching the Circle Culture Academy, which is a course that tries to encapsulate at least some of what I learned in that thirst for knowledge when I first came and found something special and tried to learn all about it. It
Yeah.
at the time it wasn't packaged in a very digestible form. I had to watch and listen a lot. No one could explain to me necessarily why this model works, why the model of a mentoring circle works so well and does things that traditional counseling struggles to do sometimes.
Mm,
Um, so I watched and I tried to understand what was happening. Why is this working? Why is this transformative? Why can you do a year of therapy and struggle to change, or do 2 days at a Boys to Men adventure weekend and come out like fundamentally different? Like I came out fundamentally different. I wasn't the same person anymore
mm-hmm.
in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much there that I could knock on the door of those things. Like, there's just so many things. The first thing, and I'll try not to monologue too much here, but the first thing is really just that framing of like the adolescent who starts to become aware of possibilities that he may not even really fully see, but he intuits. And it's like this soul call or this deeper call within him for something that's more authentic than what he's been offered. Like, we get so down on teenagers for their constant no's. They'll say no to so many things. They'll be cynical, they'll be critical. Um, they won't be very positive, they'll be negative. But there is some incredible discernment in that also, because a lot of what we imbibe and what we take in as adults and come to accept as normal is such trash and such falsity and such low hanging fruit. So bless that past version of you. It's like incredible just to know that you tasted good fruits and now you want to share them. I think that it's always the marker of when something's real and good, whether
Mm.
it's in spiritual practice or relational practices or personal development or whatever it is. If you taste it and it's good and it benefits you, you naturally want to share it with others. Um, that's the main thing. There was so many others, but I can't remember. Yeah, I'm at a loss for words.
What piece about teenagers and their nose is interesting,
Mm,
um, because well, that was my experience of being a teenager. I was
yeah,
pretty rebellious,
yeah,
pretty um, judgmental,
hmm,
um, even while recognizing a little bit that that was a problem. I wasn't willing to hear why it was a problem from people who who didn't inspire me, who
yeah,
didn't. Um, I was discerning enough, and this is the experience I have working with teenagers too. They have a funny discernment. Like the bullshit detector is still intact because they haven't fully bought into a version of the bullshit. They don't need it to be true yet.
yeah, yeah.
They don't need some narrative about what life is to be true yet. They're still trying to figure it out. So they're in a unique position to sniff out hypocrisy and
Phoniness.
um, phoniness,
It's the Holden Caulfield superpower, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it didn't work out so well for him. But I think we're all that on some level at that age.
Well,
Like we're
it doesn't do much good. It doesn't do much good to get stuck in cynicism
no,
um,
no, that's true.
forever. There's a failure to mature in that,
Absolutely.
um, which is probably why too. Like I was so happy when I came to my first event and saw transformation happen because I was like, okay, I don't know exactly what it is, but this is real
Mm-hmm.
and it's like unquestionably good.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I remember was that okay, so I'm not alone. Like there's people walking around that are just carrying deep pain all the
Yeah.
time. It's their daily
Yeah.
existence. Their life is about coping with it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really that was I think as a teenager what I was kind of without being able to fully articulate what I was calling out. I was like, there's got to be more to life than coping. Like, that
Yeah.
can't be what it is, that we're all just in pain and
Yeah.
unhappy and
Yeah.
dissatisfied and wondering if any of it means anything, but we're going to
Mhm.
cope and distract ourselves. Like, there has to be more. I don't want to be here. I don't want
Yeah.
to be here if that's what it is. But I
Right.
don't believe, but at the same time, I had a deep distrust of that. I thought there must be something meaningful if you were willing to look hard enough.
So
But
what is
yeah,
it?
I think that that's just interesting. I just thought it was interesting the
So
no's of teenagers.
what is it within a circle that a facilitator can do or a facilitator doesn't do that would really allow for that trust to be established that this can be good? And what is it that's done that's good within a circle?
I think the first thing that happens is the no gets validated.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
um for me, and it's not like this for all teenagers. We're all different and we have different levels of sensitivity to different aspects of what it means to exist in this culture at this moment of time. But I was just tired of being bullshitted.
Yeah.
Um, and like I have sympathy for the adults who had to deal with me because I was looking for something so deep, and they're like, I don't know, kid. Like, just do your
Yeah.
fucking homework. Uh,
Right.
sorry about the cussing, but they probably felt that way about me.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that I mean, I do this in my practice as a therapist, and I think I learned it from from my work with boys to men in circles. The truth is always respected.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this incredible openness. So um, it's like if I was feeling a no about education, which I was, um, I'm really curious and I like to learn, but I didn't feel right about the way I was educated growing up,
Yeah.
and it didn't really fit too well for me. Um, Not that I'm not grateful that like I learned how to read. That was all right. It could be worse in other times in history, but
Mm-hmm.
I had my strong objections to it, and I think that in a circle as well as in my own practice, it's like, well, that's true. Like a lot of education is arbitrary hoop jumping,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of other goals in it besides just educating you or turning you into a learned, wise person. So good for you. You detected it. And I think as a teenager, that's all I wanted to hear to trust someone. I've been like, okay, like I know you're not going to gaslight me um, into into um, into not believing what my eyes are telling me, what my heart's telling me too.
Yeah, it's like the movement away from childhood into adulthood, whatever that gradation is or that journey. It's really like the movement away from Santa Claus and the movement away from like the lies that were told, fundamentally lies, that were like symbolic of some kind of essence of Christmas or essence of magic in the world or mystery, right? And steadily moving towards the sober truth of like, I guess, like the darkness that lives in the world, that like schools um, may not be really doing education, for example, and that there's like a lot of hoop jumping within the hoop jumping to make you believe that this is all worth your while and totally like the best possible way that we could be doing this thing. When, having been in a school as a high school teacher for 15 years, I can say, uh, even myself, even though I could see that we could be doing something much grander in order to educate human beings, you get so broken down and dulled by the routine and by the institutional logic and stuff. I can't even imagine something outside of it sometimes, right? But
Mm.
as a teenager, you're kind of like, I just love that idea of like, yeah, maybe I just needed to have someone be able to get on the same page with me and agree that there was something to my discernment. There was something to what I was seeing, that I'm not crazy, that I'm not gaslit all the time, right? Like that builds trust, right? When we can get on the same page. What else about a circle or that a facilitator could do in a circle or a mentor that builds that trust for teenagers who are obstinate and defiant? What else what else can you do?
Yeah, I want to answer that question. You just said something that made me have a thought. There's a funny kind of like glitch that exists in power dynamics. Well, maybe it's not a glitch. Maybe it's a feature of power dynamics where like it's almost like if we tell the teenagers, especially the teenage boys, that
Yeah,
like what they're missing or that like that there's issues with the system, like your intuition about that is correct, like your
yeah,
irritation with it is correct,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
then they're going to want something more or better.
Right.
So it's like scary. It's
Yeah,
scary to tell
yeah.
them that. But and I think that logic plays out sometimes. I think it plays out maybe in any power dynamic sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, we don't want them to know that it could be better. Then they're going to want it to be better, as they should. And there's something scary about that or
So then,
overwhelming.
like,
So it's like there's an
to
incentive to kind of keep them in the dark.
and this is why the boys to men idea of like the truth is honored above all other things, that it's like the highest of the hierarchy, is so radical, right? In within an institutional space or within a heavily conditioned logic space, because the truth is heavily inconvenient to our motives or our agenda, right? And I love that moment in a circle where a teenager says something that's like distasteful or inconvenient or kind of like the thing you're not supposed to say, right? And the
Took me
skilled
a while to learn to
facilitator.
love it.
Sorry, what'd you
It took
say?
me a while to learn to love when it took me a while to learn to love it. It used to
Yeah,
freak me out.
yeah. Because we're really not used to. It's not that we're celebrating the obstinacy or the cynicism, but more the rawness. I think the raw truth, and the bravery it takes to go against the grain. Because it's not that, another thing I think that we carry into circles is this like behaviorism paradigm where it's like if I reinforce that once, he's always going to do it. But
Yeah.
maybe that's like true of a dog who's in a lab setting, and he's got no choice, but I don't think that really holds like in the complexity and profundity of human dynamics, especially when it comes to like an intentional space for healing and growth. Like you validate that once, it may never happen again.
Well, and from a psychotherapeutic perspective, that makes perfect sense. If
Mm.
someone has something they need to say and they need to be heard, and no one hears them, that's going to become over time in ways in a great way or in a small way an invalidation wound. And sometimes all
Mm.
it takes is for like a room full of people to say like, yeah, I see that. um, and then like finally like someone sees
Yeah.
it and
I feel
just
like I
and
heard
isn't
that.
like isn't trying to manipulate me out of it,
Mm.
um, which is what that, you know, that sort of strategic invalidation is ultimately. Like it's manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Mm-hmm.
bending the truth or not acknowledging the truth in hopes of getting a behavior that's more favorable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something quite
So
noxious, isn't it?
yeah, well, if you strip a lot of things down, like I don't know. I haven't lived in many cultures. A feature of our culture is that we're not that aware of our shadow. So there's a lot of things in this culture. If you strip them down, you see like some pretty um, unpleasant motivations for
Mm-hmm.
how we relate to each other and how we treat each other and why things are happening. And then there's also parts of it that aren't like that. There's parts of it where the intentions are good, and I think it's um, part of maturing is learning to see the darkness in our culture without getting too overexcited about it, I guess, or too crushed even by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
there's
even though there might be a lot of disagreeable, dark things about a high school,
yeah.
like there's still a teacher like you there,
Mm-hmm.
that has good intentions and wants it to be a good experience and cares about the people that they're teaching.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's
But
easy
I I
to
I I put us way down a rabbit hole. You asked what other
no.
ways can we build trust with a difficult teenager, let's say someone who would be labeled as a difficult teenager because um, not because they're aiming to be difficult, but because their desire to tell the truth about something or be heard for what's true about them or for them is inconvenient. I
Could be
think
that, or it could be that they have like really annoying coping strategies also, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
let's be
could be.
honest.
Yep,
Um,
yeah.
but that trust, okay, so you got one on deck. Like, what is another element of
Well,
building that trust and like
what we've been
facilitating?
talking around
Yeah.
is hearing their truth and saying like, "Yep, sounds right. Sounds
Mm-hmm.
like you're onto something there," or in your position, that makes sense. Or
Mm-hmm.
yes, I hear you. Whatever that validation looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that kind of takes care of the being an adult that can handle the truth,
Mm-hmm.
or or at least the truth of what's going on for that kid. And then we can
Mm-hmm.
also tell the truth, and put skin in the game, and that's something that's unique about boys to men circles. It's not necessarily because, like, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily true of all group therapies, for example, or circle models. It's something that is really promoted in boys to men mentoring circles. And I brought it forward into my work as a psychotherapist, and I find it really useful. It cuts against a lot of professional mores, I guess,
Yeah.
or norms to
Yeah.
be a teacher or a therapist or a youth mentor and be really candid about your life and your struggles and challenges,
Mm-hmm.
or what's true for you. But it's 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 super powerful.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful if done responsibly and intentionally. That was part of what was so good to me about about that first event that I went to because the leaders of the event were doing that, but it didn't make me respect them less as
No,
leaders. They
that's
seemed
right.
stronger because they could tell the truth. I
Yeah,
respected it on an instinctive level, that they could
yeah.
lead without hiding behind a mask of lies or a persona of leadership because they were telling the truth. Their leadership was fully embodied. They really
Hmm.
were that person, and I didn't detect that it was just an act that they were putting
Hmm.
on.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was my answer. Like, we can hear the truth that
Yeah.
young people have to say, and then we can tell the truth about what's real for us too.
It makes me think of Parker Palmer, who is this great writer and educator that I read quite a bit of his work some years ago. And I'll always remember this thing that he talked about with regards to, I don't think he used this word, but it was really about teacherly authority. Like what actually makes you an authoritative teacher, someone who's worth listening to and trusting and not messing
Mm,
around in that guy's class, not because he's going to punish you, but because there's something you respect there, or that woman's class for that matter. And what he said was that teacher would be willing to make themselves vulnerable in the service of learning. And I think it's fundamentally this that we're talking about, right? Making oneself vulnerable in the service of one's own growth, but also the growth of the youth or the other mentors in the space, because in a way it's exactly like you said. There's something about especially that teenage mind and that teenage discernment, as it's still got one foot in like the rawness of childhood, where you throw a tantrum if you need to. You don't hold back, right? You didn't get what you want, you throw a tantrum. There's something very true
mm,
about that in a sense, right? And then the personas in the adult world that we birth, which are these masks made of lies, in order, yeah, I'm great. How are you? Hi. Yeah, I'm doing great. Whatever it is, it's like this is the phoniness that Holden Caulfield couldn't handle, right? And so when we have a like this idea of embodied leadership, is like, yeah, these things exist. These are struggles I've overcome or I'm still struggling with. There's something deeply, um, I guess, like it closes the gap between, there's an intimacy that comes with that, right? Which I think
mm.
leads to trust. And I think that that's a beautiful one that you just shared. And I hope and I continue, and it's my commitment that Boys to Men spaces continue to have this because I think it's quite unique. And I see no real downside, especially if the man or the mentor who's willing to put skin in the game, if they are really up for their own freedom, because there's nothing
Mm.
more powerful than being willing to let these things in us die, these things that feed on how others see us and trying to control those narratives and trying to maintain a persona in the eyes of others, like to keep it alive on the like juice of someone else's regard. It's such a burden and it hampers our growth so much. So I think you're right on it, man.
It's funny, when I was doing my um like graduate level practicum, I was a mental health clinician in a youth clinic working with working with youth, and sometimes because I've been doing circles and mentoring for just about a decade at that point,
Yeah.
sometimes I would talk about myself with one of these teenage boys and say like, yeah, like I'm still struggling with that, or like here's what's real for me, and I would and like when you do that with a teenage boy and you're really putting some skin in the game, their eyes are like
Mm-hmm.
they're like
Mm-hmm.
dialed in. They're like, oh, finally
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
someone's saying something real.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we always had these wrap ups after the sessions because I would be watched by an audience. doing
Right.
these sessions of other
Right.
clinicians and the supervisor of the clinic. And invariably, someone would comment, like, I was a little uncomfortable when Sean did that. Like, you know, and they would say something about how it like wasn't good. Like, it was an assumption that it wasn't good, that I'd
Mm,
overshared or something. And I kept
mm,
waiting for like the why. Like, why is it bad? Like it had a great result. Um, the rapport got deeper, the conversation got more lively after that, it got more meaningful. And so I'd just be listening for the why this was harmful, or
yeah.
why this was risky, or why it was bad, or why I should have
Yeah.
chosen a different option. And that just never came. That doesn't mean that
Yeah.
there wasn't a why. It probably means there just wasn't a good one.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway, anyways. Like, I felt a little disturbed at first that an audience of people is kind of criticizing me for doing this, but I
Mm-hmm.
just looked at it rationally and I was like, but they don't have a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of more reasons why it would be bad than they did, and I watch out for all those reasons.
I mean, isn't it
But
the
it
main
was
reason?
interesting to see the knee-jerk reaction.
Mm,
It's they didn't have a reason. There are reasons why you would watch out for that, but their reason was it freaked me out to watch an
mm-hmm.
adult and a teenager have an honest discussion about something.
Mm-hmm.
That I found that alarming.
Yeah. Well, there's a fear, right? There's a fear that then I would have to do it or something, or
Hmm.
that's like a standard that I would have to meet. But that can go wrong also because there are powerful forces that could play through that kind of move that wouldn't benefit the kid, right? Like projections and
Well, you can't
sort of
need
like,
anything from it.
right,
You can't you can't need like the youth to validate you, or
right,
you have to not even need it to have a good effect
right,
necessarily. In
right.
that, like, if you're paying attention, you see it's not having a good effect, they're sick of listening about you. Like, you just shut up. It's not about you. And
Yeah.
so I think that's the easy heuristic when you're doing that
Hmm.
with a young person you're trying to help. If it's not helping, and you find yourself for any reason wanting to continue or wanting to try to get something out of it, then there's something for you to look at. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
why are you doing that?
Nice, man. The mastery of your craft is shining through. I feel it and I see it. And I feel like we'll wrap up soon. So maybe we'll just come to a conclusion fairly soon and wrap up. Um, so the Circle Culture Academy is a place where you guys, anybody who's watching this can sign up. You don't have to become a Boys to Men mentor committed. You can if you feel a call to. We have online circles in which you can sit in and support trained facilitators in doing the kind of work with youth that Sean is talking about. Or you could also train to be one of those facilitators and host a circle. These are possibilities. And or you could be outside of the organization and attend the CCA, the Circle Culture Academy, for your own professional development or personal development. We have people doing it for exactly that reason. And it's sure to be like a very rich learning process, not just theoretical, but experiential. Um, how should we conclude, Sean?
Well, I think that was a nice CCA plug. I'm really excited to teach it this January. There's still a couple weeks left to sign up.
Yeah,
Um, excited about the people who've already signed up, and um, excited to pass some of what I learned through my work with Boys to Men on. It was instinctive, like that young man who attended that event and then chased around the leaders for years, trying to, like, nipping at their heels, basically trying to do any
mm,
job that they would give me.
yeah,
Um, there is something special and it still lives in the work, that the really unique work that Boys to Men Canada does. Yeah, in some ways, it's almost a hidden treasure. It's becoming less that way as the organization grows, but it's felt like it's been a bit of a hidden treasure, and the CCA was my way of not wanting that to be so hidden anymore. I think
Hmm.
that, yeah, I think the world would probably be better if we had spaces that respected the truth as the highest point on the hierarchy. Nothing's more important than the truth. And it's miracles happen when
Yes.
nothing is more important than the truth. And that's what I saw at that first event. That's what this methodology kind of produces. It produces that. It produces miracles of personal transformation.
Yeah. Very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. I want to thank you for taking the time to do this video with me. I want to thank you for your ongoing commitment and service to Boys to Men, and and to anyone who watches this or watched this. I want to thank you for taking the time. And if you want to get involved in some way or ask any kind of questions, like why do I have this big mark on my face right here, we could talk about it. Now, this was a climbing accident. Nothing nasty going on at home. It's all good. Um, yeah, but seriously, thank
The
you, Sean,
second you
for.
say that, it gets like suspicious.
Yeah, but I've been staring at it. I've been staring at it on my own face for maybe 8 minutes, and I just couldn't quite help myself. Um, yeah. Thank you, Sean,
All right.
and thank you,
Yeah, it's
everyone.
been a pleasure.
Thank you.